A city spokesperson says taxpayers have to pay for Mayor Cantrell's flight upgrades for a recent overseas trip.
As David Jones reports, receipts show the trip to South Korea for her and two staffers cost at least $33,000.
The taxpayers want to know, whether or not their money is being spent in a lawful and ethical manner.
On May 23rd, Mayor LaToya Cantrell, a member of her executive protection team and her communications director, took a trip to the World Climate Industry Expo in South Korea, where she was the only U.S. mayor to attend.
The city of New Orleans, and especially when you talk about South Korea and having sister city agreements in South Korea, our partners travel. And so it's like a force multiplier.
Fox 8 obtained records which show more than $33,000 was spent between Cantrell and her two staffers, Gregory Joseph and NOPD officer Robert Monlin. Cantrell has come under fire in the past for flight upgrades on overseas travel. Last October, she repaid the city nearly $29,000 in travel upgrades, which the city attorney determined violated the city's travel policy.
She should know to be sensitive about the subject and to make sure that when she travels, all expenses are made available to the public.
All three flew first class from New Orleans to San Francisco and business class from San Francisco to Japan. Then the trio flew economy class to Busan, South Korea, where the expo was held. Coming back, they again flew economy to Japan, business to Denver, and first class back to New Orleans. Cantrell's airfare total cost more than $10,500. Records show she did receive a $5,000 stipend for transportation from the event's co-sponsor, the parent company of the New York Times. City policy calls for employees to seek the lowest fares available and to pay the difference if they seek to upgrade. It also states the airfare must be booked at least 14 calendar days prior to departure, unless documentation is provided showing why that was not possible. Cantrell and her two staffers' flights were booked 11 days before departure, and the city has not provided an explanation why the advance purchase requirement could not be met. Cantrell did not directly answer when asked if upgrades on this trip will be paid back.
What I do and the practices that I have upholded, particularly pre-COVID, because I would upgrade my own, and then flying under the conditions of COVID and wanting to make sure that I protect me, meaning peace of mind, safety and the like, I am more protected mentally as well as physically flying first class. And this is something that is not a luxury. It is something that I deem necessary, and it's something that I paid for and I continue to pay for.
The mayor's communications director, Gregory Joseph, says the city will not be reimbursed for the flight upgrades.
The issue here is that the mayor is aware that she's been investigated for her travel expenses in the past, and the mayor is aware that both members of the city council and members of the general public have expressed concern about expenditures for her travel.
City policy states the city will cover airfare for business class flights if the costs do not far exceed coach rates for international flights over 10 hours. The city has not provided us the coach rate for the flights, but in a statement, Joseph said the trip was over 10 hours and the rate fell in line with policy, so no reimbursement is required.
Even if they create the appearance of impropriety, it's going to draw attention from the city council, it's going to draw attention from the general public, and it's going to distract from them actually doing the business of government and taking care of the people's business in running this city in an efficient manner.
We followed up with city spokesperson Gregory Joseph to clarify whether he is lumping the first-class domestic flights together with the business-class flights to Japan. We are still waiting to hear back on that point, but Joseph did say the city is still awaiting the stipend money from the New York Times.